One major reflection I had throughout this project was just the number of students we have who are of color versus the number of staff we have who are of color. So about 75% of our students are of color. However, none of our certified teaching staff are of color. The staff in our building who are of color are represented in the janitorial staff, cafeteria staff, or IAs, and I thought that was one of my school's biggest weaknesses. Our students of color don't see themselves represented in the adults around them, and I touched on this earlier. All of our teaching staff, we only have 2 males, so I think those are 2 areas of our biggest weakness. Next, I collected data on 3rd graders who are proficient on math and who are proficient on ELA. You'll see at the table that our Hispanic population is the most proficient, and they do make up the biggest subgroup of students. I guess they're not a subgroup, they're the majority of students at our school. But one thing that was glaring was our students who are 2 or more races are significantly below the rest of their peers. So what can we do as a staff to ensure that all of our students are achieving high levels of proficiency? Next, I look to see who in the Math and Reading Club after school actually are proficient on PARCC, and none of the 4th grade students in the reading club showed proficiency on PARCC from last year. So, by excluding students who don't have high enough test scores to be invited to our club, are we excluding our biggest pool of potential, potential students who can do well on PARCC? Is it a test score that predicts how well a student can do, or their motivation? So then I did look to see, well, if they weren't proficient, scoring a 4 or a 5, what level did they score? And most of our students fell in the 2 or 3 range, but these were not anyone who was like a 1, 2, some 3s were invited to the math club. So we're really excluding a majority of our students who, beg and ask to join the club, but we say no because they don't have the score, while majority of our students who are even in the club don't have the score. So why are we making this an exclusive club? What is the point? In my classroom, I have 4 ELLs out of 29. Out of the 733 students in our school, we have 133 ELLs. And out of the 47 special ed students, 11 of them are ELLs. And I think that we would have more ELLs in the SPED community, but our administration is very slow to identify an ELL as special ed because they think it's their language development that's keeping them from making progress. Even if they've been in the country for multiple years, their siblings speak English. They've been at Baltimore Highlands since pre-K. So I do think there are more ELL students who are special ed and who are not receiving the services that they deserve. I tried very hard last year to get an ELL special ed services, which he desperately needed, and it was very, very difficult to do that. We have 3 staff members who are bilingual, which I think has been a huge help creating the really warm culture we have at our school. Any parent who walks through the door can feel like they're in a comfortable, safe environment and get the resources and questions answered that they need. We don't have any staff who are bilingual on the school board, but all communications that go home are translated. Then I looked to see how many ELLs were in the after-school math club, and ELLs make up about 18% of our population, so there was definitely a large amount of them in 4th grade, but 3rd and 5th grade, that data reflected what we see school-wide. Next, I looked to see ELLs who were proficient on PARCC versus white students who are proficient on PARCC. And if you'll remember, our school has 177 white students and 133 ELLs. So about the same amount, they make up a similar group of students, yet white significantly outperform their ELL classmates, which I think is very interesting. You'll see that 3rd and 4th grade ELLs on ELA score less than 5%, so I'm not sure even what that exact number is, whereas 4th grade white students on ELL, 23.8% of them are proficient. 5th grade ELLs on ELA score 6.3% proficiency, whereas in 5th grade white students score 37.5%. So similar group of students, yet their scores are completely different. So with all of our ESOL services, are we really helping our ELL students make proficiency? Out of the 47 special ed students in our school, we have a range of disabilities: developmental, emotional, specific learning disability, speech and language, and autism. But all of our special ed services are pull out or push in. We don't have a special ed class. So I do think that's a testament to our school that we are full inclusion for our special ed students. Then I looked to see how many special ed students were invited to after school reading and math club, and you'll see in 4th grade we do have a high percentage, but in 5th grade and 4th grade we have no representation in 5th grade of special ed students. And some of the students who I'm thinking back on who asked me to join reading and math club were special ed, and that's a whole nother subgroup of students that we're totally excluding from reading and math club. So where are we letting those students excel and push themselves and motivate themselves if they can't do it in after school programs? So then I looked to see the percentage of students who are special ed who were proficient on PARCC in ELA and math, and the numbers are very, very small. 3rd grade for math and ELA was 12.5%, whereas in 4th and 5th grade was 5% or lower. So again, with all of our special ed services, what are we doing to help our students reach proficiency? I touched on this earlier, the gender makeup of our teaching staff. So out of 34 classroom teachers, 2 are male, 32 are female. All grades are self-contained except for 4th and 5th grade. So our math teachers would consist of all teachers, 3rd grade and lower, plus the 2 in math in 4th grade and 5th grade. You'll see a similar trend. Language arts teachers are all teachers 3rd grade and lower. And then the additional, just 1 male language arts teacher in 4th grade. The rest are female. So similar trend across the board. We have the 1 5th grade teacher who teaches the advanced academic class in 5th grade. So just 1 teacher. Our discipline data was overwhelmingly male, and I touched on this earlier that we really don't have male role models in our building, for our high-flying male students who, they were suspended the most. We have a behavior specialist, but unfortunately he's not returning next year. We are just not filling that position. So we have 3 males in our building, taking away 1. So we have very few to begin with, and then are choosing not to refill that position, which I think is one of my school's biggest weaknesses. So then I looked at the gender breakdown of students who were proficient on PARCC. And one trend I noticed that females scored higher on ELA than the males did. And then they were either similar or reversed a bit, and males scored higher on math. And I was just reflecting, when we look at data, about half of each grade level is on grade level. So half of 3rd grade is either on or below. But when we look at this data, why are our males scoring so much below grade level when it's really 50-50? And is it because that, you know, the females are more willing to sit and take the time to read these boring articles, whereas our male students are just not engaged? So do these scores reflect performance, or do they just reflect that they don't want to sit through this boring test? So when somebody looks at these scores, they're going to assume that our male students are scoring, you know, lower, they're not as motivated, maybe they're below grade level, when in reality, these tests are just not engaging for our students. I looked at the gender breakdown of students who did participate in reading and math club, and there wasn't a conclusive trend I could really find. You know, it kind of differed by grade, or they were kind of similar. But my final reflection is our male Black students have the highest discipline referrals, and they have absolutely no role models in the building to look up to. And, you know, we've implemented restorative practices, virtues language, but they need somebody who they can see in themselves. After talking with our principal, we have 2 staff members who are open about their sexual orientation. There is a clause in the anti-bullying policy that, you know, we won't discriminate, we won't harass based on sexual orientation or gender identity. And our principal did not report any bullying incidents related to sexual orientation. So we talked with these staff members. They feel open and welcome, receive the same benefits, don't feel like they need to not share that part of their identity. However, our school curriculum does not address LGBTQ issues. We don't have a Gay Straight Alliance club. Really the only after school programs or clubs we have are after school reading and math club and intramurals, just because we are an elementary school. But when talking with our librarian, there are books in our library that talk about, you know, different types of family, but don't specifically address, you know, this boy or girl is transgender. Librarians and principals can choose to buy these books. It's the county does want libraries to include these books. That's a big initiative, but it's really up to the principal and the librarian. So that could either work out really well for a school, or that library won't have exposure to these books. Similar to our library, the librarian was not sure what books we did have in our library. I'm just going to go back a few slides to touch on a couple things I didn't get a chance to talk about. A couple minutes left. Let's see. So this is going back to the ethnicity of students, the race and ethnicity of students who were proficient on PARCC in the reading club. And of those 4th grade students who are in the after school reading club, none of them scored 4 or 5 on PARCC. So these students who we invited back from last year, who we say show promise, actually did not score proficiency. So if even the students in the reading club who aren't proficient, why are we excluding students who we claim don't have high enough scores when the actual students in the club aren't proficient either? Let's see. Okay, well, I think I got it all, so thanks for watching. Sorry the end was a little all over the place, but just wanted to make sure I got it all. Have a great summer.